As I stared at my phone, an all-too-familiar knot twisted painfully in my stomach. A text message from my mother pierced the stillness of my quiet afternoon. Looking forward to seeing you at our family gathering this weekend. I can't wait to hear about your projects. Each word felt heavy, laden with the unspoken truth that my accomplishments would likely fade into the background, overshadowed by my siblings' supposed perfection. Why does my happiness always feel like a whisper in their presence? I murmured to myself, surrendering to the overwhelming weight of despair. No matter how much I achieved, I remained trapped in the haunting echo of inadequacy, my self-worth defined by her distant approval. The upcoming gathering loomed over me like a storm cloud, a cruel arena where I would perform a role that felt increasingly foreign. Pacing the room, memories cascaded into my mind like rain. I recalled vivid moments of standing outside my mother's bedroom door, heart racing, rehearsing my successes in silence. "Mom, I got published," I'd imagined saying, yet those words never escaped my lips. Each time I became a silent observer, yearning for acknowledgement that always eluded me. The ache in my heart intensified, burdened by the knowledge that her love was a scarce commodity, a validation forever withheld. Each gathering had become an exercise in emotional endurance, where I had learned to mask my vulnerability behind a facade of strength. Suddenly, a flicker of awareness began to rise within me, igniting a question I had seldom dared to voice. How had I allowed this unrelenting pursuit of approval to dictate my existence? How had I become so accustomed to living in the shadows of my family's expectations? The weight of that unfulfilled desire pressed heavily on my chest, filling me with both sadness and an unexpected resolve. Perhaps this time would be different. As I glanced around the room, my eyes landed on the dusty shelf lined with forgotten self-help books. Titles on healing, resilience, and self-discovery beckoned to me, almost whispering promises of understanding and growth. Maybe there was a glimmer of hope buried within those pages. I remembered Jung's teachings on the inner child, concepts that had initially intrigued me but now felt like a lifeline. If I could unearth the roots of my pain, I might finally have a chance to shed the burdens that my upbringing had instilled in me. With each breath, I felt that flicker of hope grow, a warmth igniting from the depths of my childhood silence. This time, I was determined to embark on a journey towards self-discovery, a quest to challenge the patterns ingrained in my life. As I prepared for the family gathering, I drew in a deep breath, feeling an unfamiliar swell of resilience rising within me. It was time to confront the echoes of my past, to reclaim the narrative I thought I had lost forever. I might face the uncomfortable truth of my emotions, but I would no longer let them hold me captive. In the silence of my childhood, could I finally find my voice? The road ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, yet I stood ready to face it, not as the daughter seeking validation, but as a woman intent on uncovering her authentic self. The day of the family gathering arrived, shrouded in a heavy tension that settled over me like an oppressive fog. As I prepared to leave my apartment, a swirl of anxiety and anticipation coursed through my veins. Standing in front of the mirror, I found myself searching my reflection for signs of strength, courage, or any glimpse of the person I wished to become. Yet the familiar face staring back at me felt all too burdened by the weight of past expectations, marred by insecurities and unfulfilled yearnings shaped by years of emotional neglect. The memories washed over me like relentless waves, each crashing moment forging the person I was today. I remembered the countless times I had sought my mother's approval, only to be met with indifference or harsh criticisms that cut deeper than any wound. Vividly, I recalled the school play in 4th grade when I snagged the lead role. I had donned my costume with pride, eyes sparkling with excitement. As I performed as my characters, I kept searching the audience for her familiar face, hoping to catch a glimpse of her admiration. Instead, there she was, engaged in conversation, with friends, completely oblivious to my moment in the spotlight. That disappointment hung in the air long after the performance ended. I learned an excruciating lesson then. My worth had become conditional, tethered to the validation of others. The fire ignited within me, a scorching blend of hurt and anger, as I realized just how deep these beliefs ran. Time and again, I had internalized the notion that to be worthy, I needed to earn my right to exist, to excel, and most importantly, to be loved. Flashes of other significant moments coursed through my mind like a painful movie reel. I remembered winning a county writing contest, my heart soaring as I raced home to share the news. "Mom, I won!" I blurted, bubbling with excitement. Her response, though, was disheartening. An indifferent nod, followed by the obligatory, "That's nice, dear," spoken with a tone draped in apathy. And there it was again, that visceral sting of disappointment and the quiet belief that no matter how brightly I shone, I would always be outshined by others, especially my brother. In those moments, I vividly felt the shadow of my sibling loom large over my achievements. He was the golden child, celebrated for his effortless successes, and in that familial space, I found myself spiraling deeper into darkness. Jealousy fermented inside me as I watched my family rally around him with unrestrained joy, their laughter resonating as an echo against my own silence. The celebration of his accomplishments became a painful reminder of my struggle for visibility. My self-doubt accumulated like a snowball, gaining size and speed as it rolled down a hill until it threatened to bury me whole. As I stepped closer to my childhood home, an overwhelming rush of emotions met me at the door. This gathering wouldn't merely be a social event, it would be a battleground for my self-worth, a chance to confront the roots of my pain and reclaim my voice. I felt the pressure of those expectations pressing down like an anchor, but deep within, there was a glimmer of resolve, a hope tugging at my heartstrings. I recalled Jung's teachings on the shadow, the parts of ourselves we often deny or hide. If I was to heal, I knew I had to face those shadows directly. I began to internalize that acknowledging my pain could be the catalyst for transformation rather than a source of shame. Memories morphed into lessons, not just scars. My thoughts shifted to my father, who had always played the role of the mediator, caught in the turmoil between my mother's all-consuming presence and my silent struggles. Though he loved me, his support often felt muted. Rather than reinforcing my worth, he often seemed more focused on averting discord. This left me feeling more alone than ever, trapped in a cycle of silence where my feelings remained unspoken. With each breath, I steadied myself. Standing before my family, I would no longer be the timid child seeking approval. I was evolving into the woman intent on unveiling her authentic self. I began to shift my perspective, recognizing the ever-persistent urge to seek my self-worth externally. What if, instead of desperately craving their approval, I chose to foster it within myself? As I opened the door to my childhood home, the familiar laughter and chaos enveloped me like a warm blanket, but I was determined not to retreat into the shadows. I was here to embrace my past, my pain, and reclaim my narrative. Rediscovering my inner child might come with discomfort, but it was a necessary journey towards liberation. I would honor those memories, even the painful ones, while forging ahead to build healthy relationships with my family and myself. With newfound courage, I stepped into the fray, ready to confront not just my family's expectations, but my own entrenched beliefs about worthiness. Today was just a gathering, but it also held the promise of transformation. I felt the strength rising within me as I walked into the space where I had often felt unseen. This time, it was my intention to reclaim my voice and embrace the power that lay dormant within me, waiting for the right moment to emerge. As I crossed the threshold into my childhood home, the familiar scents engulfed me, sweet baked goods mingling with the hint of my mother's perfume. Laughter erupted from within, a joyous chaos that always filled the air during family gatherings, but beneath it, a churn of emotions began to brew inside me. My brother stood proudly at the center of the chatter, recounting his latest achievement, and I felt that familiar pang of inadequacy creep back. Yet, today, I committed to taking a different path. Recently, Jung's teachings had illuminated my thoughts, particularly the concept of the inner child. I realized this gathering could transform from a performance into a moment of self-discovery, and opportunity to reconnect with that vulnerable part of me that had longed for love and acceptance. I sought to quiet the storm within and listen to her. Finding a quiet moment, I stepped out onto the back porch. The autumn chill brushed against my skin, grounding me. Closing my eyes, I envisioned my younger self, the girl who felt invisible, burdened by yearning for validation. "I see you," I whispered, my heart swelling with empathy. "You don't have to hide anymore." I understood now how often I had thought that love must be earned, and in this moment of realization, I could extend my compassion beyond myself. This emotional honesty opened a new door. I recognized that my mother's emotional distance likely arose from her own unresolved wounds. While this didn't excuse her actions, it offered me a path to forgiveness, a personal release that could free me from the grip of resentment. For too long, I had seen her emotional neglect as a wall, but perhaps it was a window into her own struggles. Filled with a sense of clarity and renewed purpose, I headed back inside. The lively atmosphere surrounded me, yet now I perceived the dynamics at play more acutely. My brother's stories dominated, while others quietly waited for their turns to speak. An urge sprang within me to assert myself, to carve out my own space at this family table, rather than retreating into the muted background. Determined to reclaim my voice, I raised my glass to propose a toast. "I need to share something important," I said, my voice steady despite the flutter of apprehension. "While I appreciate our time together, I often feel invisible at these gatherings. It's time for me to recognize my own journey." The room fell silent, surprise evident in their expressions. Heart-pounding, I pressed on, revealing my efforts in seeking personal growth and aiming to honor my own path. My vulnerability felt both terrifying and liberating, a chance to break the silence that had long shrouded my true feelings. As I spoke, I felt a wave of relief wash over me, as if I were shedding years of suppressed emotion. This time, I was not just hoping to appease others. I was articulating my truth. Questions, curiosity, and even unexpected support emerged from around the table, transforming the dynamic into a more open exchange. My family engaged with me in a way I had not anticipated, and I was met not with resistance, but with understanding. The conversations blossomed, encompassing not only my experiences, but also those of my siblings and parents as we shared the deeper stories that had lived beneath the surface. These discussions illuminated our individual struggles, subtly liberating us from the roles we had played for so long. As we connected on these new levels, my heart swelled with gratitude. Speaking up had forged a pathway to deeper relationships within my family. I recognized in that moment that this journey was not solely about my own growth. It was about building a bridge that could unite us all, allowing my inner child to flourish in the warmth of love rather than fear. Around that table, enveloped by the laughter and chatter of my family, I understood that I was beginning to carve a new narrative, one not dictated by external expectations, but rooted in the authenticity of my experiences and emotions. In these interactions, I realized I could take control of my story and allow it to unfold, with integrity and truth. With every passing moment, I felt the shadows of doubt recede, replaced by the hopeful light of connection. I was establishing a framework for what it meant to be seen, not just as a daughter seeking validation, but as a woman embracing the fullness of who I was becoming. The realization washed over me like a gentle tide. This gathering marked a pivotal change. No longer would I allow my past to dictate my worth. Instead, I was crafting a new map, one leading toward healing, understanding, and the reclamation of my voice. As I navigated this terrain, I stood confident in my path and ready to embrace the journey ahead, surrounded by family and fueled by the insights that Jung's teachings had provided. In the days following that transformative family gathering, I felt buoyed by the connections I had forged, yet there lingered a poignant sense of urgency, urging me to explore the deeper aspects of my past. The laughter and shared stories around the table had created a warm cocoon, but shadows cast from unresolved moments still stirred within me, demanding acknowledgement. It was clear to me that true liberation required more than surface connections. I needed to confront the complexities of my emotional landscape. Writing became my refuge once more. The blank pages of my journal welcomed my thoughts as I began to sift through my memories like a treasure hunter uncovering hidden artifacts. I recalled my childhood, the pivotal moments that had shaped my beliefs about love, acceptance, and my sense of worth. Each memory surfaced like a thread winding through my life, and I felt the need to untangle it. One vivid recollection stood out. Standing outside my mother's bedroom door at the age of 10, clutching my report card filled with straight A's. My heart raced as I approached, certainty giving way to dread. Would she be proud of me or simply indifferent? This pivotal moment illuminated my fear. No matter how successful I was, her approval seemed perpetually elusive, hanging just out of reach. This sense of inadequacy anchored itself in my psyche and shaped my identity for years to come. The more I wrote, the clearer the patterns emerged. I began to peel back the layers surrounding my identity: the overachiever, the peacekeeper, and the invisible child. Each role served as a defensive armor, shielding my true self from the emotional pain I had endured. I recognized how deeply these identities were rooted in the belief that my worth was contingent upon others' validation. In recounting these experiences, I felt liberated from the shackles of guilt and shame that had held me captive. The concept of Jung's shadow resonated powerfully within me. It dawned on me that my emotional pain was not merely a collection of past traumas. It was integral to my understanding of self. This shadow contained the aspects I had pushed away my entire life, and confronting them head-on would reveal essential truths about my worth. To deepen this exploration, I sought therapy, where I could confront these hidden facets in a safe space. During my first session, I detailed my upbringing and the emotional neglect that had taken root in our family dynamics. My therapist listened with compassion, guiding me gently to explore feelings I had suppressed for so long. I felt tears swell within me as I articulated the impact of my mother's emotional absence and the void it left behind. "Let's unpack those limiting beliefs," my therapist suggested. Together, we began to dismantle the narratives that anchored me in my past. I'm not worthy of love. I must be perfect to be accepted. Each phrase morphed from a painful echo into a challenge to be faced. This session marked a turning point. I realized that simply voicing these beliefs illuminated the path toward reclaiming my identity. My awareness also expanded to encompass my relationship with my father, who had often stood by as a silent observer. As the peacekeeper, he attempted to navigate my mother's challenges while inadvertently disconnecting from my emotional reality. Understanding his struggle positioned me to confront my resentment without blame. I recognized that his inability to engage deeply stemmed from his own unhealed wounds. With each session, a newfound strength emerged as I positioned myself to confront the most significant shadow lurking in my heart, my relationship with my mother. Summoning courage, I knew I needed to express to her how her emotional absence had left scars on my heart, how her actions shaped my perception of worthiness. Each day leading up to our conversation felt like steeping in a hot bath, both comforting and emotionally exhausting. Finally, the day arrived. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon, the kind of day that felt heavy with potential. I invited my mother for coffee, apprehensive yet hopeful for connection. As we sat across from each other, the silence laid thick between us, amplifying the gravity of what I was about to say. "Mom," I began, drawing a deep breath. "I want to talk about how I've felt growing up. There were moments when I needed you, and I didn't always feel that you were there for me." Her expression shifted from surprise to a contemplative sadness. I continued, expressing not just my pain but also the gratitude I felt for what she did provide. My intention was not to blame, but to bridge the gap we had created over the years. "I never meant to hurt you," she responded softly, her voice trembling. "Isabella, I thought I was doing the best I could." Her admission unlocked a flood of shared understanding and emotion. As we explored her past, I began to grasp the roots of her emotional distance. Hearing her recount her struggles fueled my empathy, a realization that her neglect stemmed from her own unresolved trauma, just as mine had. In tearing down the walls between us, we ventured into an unfamiliar territory of compassion and vulnerability that could heal generations of disconnection. In the following weeks, a weight lifted as I embraced the truths I had unearthed. My relationship with my mother began to evolve, nurturing an openness and honesty I had yearned for so long. Our conversations deepened, revealing layers of resilience and shared experiences, forging a bond that had once felt fragile. This courageous confrontation allowed both of us to establish our own identities. My mother no longer just defined by her past, and I was no longer just defined by my pain. We were both learning how to communicate our truths. Moving forward, I understood I had an opportunity to reshape my self-identity, not defined by external validation, but rather by self-acceptance and compassion. I was no longer tethered to old narratives. By confronting and integrating these shadows, I reclaimed my voice and power. As I stood upon this newfound foundation, I felt ready to embrace my path of healing and self-discovery. The work that lay ahead transformed from a daunting task into a clear opportunity, a rich terrain filled with potential for love, acceptance, and ultimately, joy. Breaking free from the confines of my past, I envisioned a vibrant future where authenticity flourished, and where the echoes of my inner child sang not of hurt, but of resilience and hope. With the foundation of my relationship with my mother solidified, I began to feel an awakening within me, an opportunity to reshape my identity and heal from the emotional scars of my past. I'd learned that the process of confronting my truths was not merely about addressing the pain. It was also about embracing authenticity and integrating my experiences into a liberating narrative. This realization fueled my desire to reclaim my voice, transforming the shadows of my past into a source of strength. I immersed myself in writing again, realizing it was a powerful outlet for my emotions and reflections. Each stroke of the pen allowed me to navigate the landscape of my memories, intertwining the threads of joy and heartache. I poured my thoughts into my journal, detailing the pivotal experiences that had shaped me. The act of writing became an essential practice, illuminating my growth and helping me clarify what I truly desired moving forward. One vivid memory stood out among the rest. The day I stood outside my mother's bedroom door, clutching my report card filled with straight A's. Dread filled my heart as I anticipated her reaction, the persistent fear that no accomplishment would be enough to earn her approval. This moment resonated deeply, illustrating the anguish of always feeling inadequate despite my efforts. I began to understand just how much this quest for validation had shaped my entire childhood and identity. As I recalled these moments, I recognized the roles I had played: the overachiever, the peacekeeper, the invisible child. Each role was a protective mechanism, crafted to navigate the emotional landscape I found myself in. Yet they also came with significant costs. I realized it was time to dismantle these roles and embrace a more authentic sense of self. In embracing Jung's concept of the shadow, I recognized that confronting my pain was essential to fully understanding who I was. It was no longer about escaping my feelings or burying them. It was about integrating all parts of myself, including the aspects I had long hidden away. This shadow represented the emotional complexities of my upbringing, and learning to accept it would allow me to reclaim my power. Seeking support, I continued therapy to explore these themes further, unveiling the layers of my emotional landscape in a safe environment. During these sessions, I shared my upbringing and the emptiness I often felt, noting how it had affected my relationships and sense of self. In articulating my struggles, I found a cathartic release. I was finally able to confront the beliefs that had anchored me to my past. "Let's dig into those beliefs that hold you back," my therapist encouraged. Together, we began dismantling the narratives that defined my identity. I'm not worthy of love. I must earn validation. I have to be perfect. Each statement morphed into an opportunity for reflection. I gradually began to see my worth as intrinsic, no longer tied to others' perceptions or approvals. I also began to reframe my relationship with my father. He had often remained an observer in our family dynamic, maintaining a stance of caution instead of active engagement. I recognized his challenges and struggles. Seeing him through a lens of compassion allowed me to approach my relationship with a fresh perspective, one focused on understanding rather than resentment. Weeks turned into months as I gradually transformed my insights into action. Confronting my mother again became imperative. I needed to vocalize how her emotional absence affected my sense of self-worth. The thought of another confrontation stirred both fear and determination within me. I imagined expressing my feelings to her, the pain of growing up feeling unseen and unheard, and the profound conversations that had begun to mend our relationship. Finally, the moment came when I felt ready to have that conversation. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when I invited my mother for coffee, my heart racing at the prospect. As we sat across from one another, the weight of unspoken words hung in the air. "Mom," I said finally, "I need to talk about how I felt during my childhood. There were many moments I needed you, and I often felt like you weren't there for me." Her expression shifted from surprise to contemplation. "Isabella, I never intended to hurt you," she replied gently, her voice tinged with remorse. "I thought I was doing my best." Hearing her admission opened a pathway to vulnerability that I hadn't anticipated. This shared understanding marked a significant shift. We ventured into a space where compassion could blossom, allowing us both to address the emotional disconnection that had lingered for so long. In the weeks that followed, the weight of silence began to lift, and our relationship transformed. We committed to nurturing openness and honesty in our interactions, learning to communicate our emotions without fear of inflicting harm. Each conversation became a stepping stone toward further understanding, and I felt a deepening bond forming between us. As we explored our histories, I recognized that this journey was not solely about me reclaiming my voice. It was about us healing together. My mother began sharing stories of her own upbringing, revealing the struggles she had faced that contributed to her emotional distance. Understanding her pain in turn deepened my empathy. I embraced the realization that I had the power to shape my narrative moving forward. I committed to self-acceptance and compassion, letting go of the old narratives that had defined me for so long. I was no longer just the invisible daughter seeking to please others. I was a woman reclaiming my right to exist authentically. Upon recognizing how far I had evolved, I felt compelled to spread my newfound wisdom beyond my family. I envisioned sharing my story publicly, not only as a means to liberate myself, but also as a way to connect with others who might resonate with my experiences. Writing became a vessel for transformation, empowering me to articulate my journey toward healing. As I worked on my article, I poured my heart into each sentence, revealing both the struggles and the triumphs of my path. I wanted to spotlight the idea that confronting pain leads to powerful healing. Each word seemed to resonate with hope, a reminder that others could find solace in shared vulnerabilities and witness their own scars transform into symbols of resilience. The moment I clicked publish on my article felt monumental. Suddenly, I had opened the door to broader connections outside my family, inviting others into my journey. The responses flooded in quickly. Friends and acquaintances reached out, sharing their own stories, their own struggles. In that moment, I recognized the beauty of community, the intricate tapestry of shared experiences that connected us all. With the encouragement I received, I felt inspired to facilitate workshops where others could share their own narratives. I aimed to create a safe space, nurtured by trust and empathy, where vulnerability could flourish. Each gathering became a haven, allowing participants to express their emotions as we wove our stories together, reinforcing the notion that we are not alone in our struggles. As I navigated these new ventures, I became increasingly mindful of my boundaries. Sharing and connecting was essential, but protecting my emotional space was equally important. Every interaction became a lesson in authenticity, reminding me of the balances necessary for healthy relationships. I embraced wholeheartedly the acknowledgement that healing isn't linear. There were moments when self-doubt would resurface, whispering old narratives of inadequacy. In these moments, I returned to my writing, allowing the pen to guide me back to my center, reaffirming my value while embracing my journey. The culmination of this work has taught me to celebrate both the light and the shadows within me. As I ventured into public speaking, sharing my insights with larger audiences, I embraced the power of storytelling. I recalled the timid girl who had once felt invisible, and I rejoiced in her resilience. Now, I stand not just as a daughter seeking recognition, but as a woman whose voice resonates with authenticity, ready to inspire others to embrace their truth. The echoes of my inner child have transformed into a melody of strength and hope, reminding me that healing is not merely a singular journey, but a shared experience among us all. As I continue forward, I am filled with gratitude for the lessons of the past and energized by the potential of my future. A future where authenticity flourishes, love grows, and resilience reigns. This is my journey, and I embrace every moment of it. Having embraced the profound changes within me, I recognize that healing was not a singular destination, but an ongoing practice, one built on authenticity, compassion, and connection. With each passing day, I committed to nurturing the newfound voice I had discovered, shifting my focus from merely surviving to thriving. Art became a vital part of this transformation. I immersed myself in painting and pottery, exploring different mediums that allowed my creativity to flourish. Each brushstroke and molded piece acted as a channel for self-expression, rekindling my inner child's joy. I could feel the warmth of that joy returning as I lost myself in colors and textures, affirming that creativity was both a release and a path to deeper self-awareness. Alongside my artistic endeavors, I continued facilitating workshops where participants could share their narratives. Each gathering became a sanctuary filled with trust and empathy, allowing vulnerability to blossom. The participants opened up, sharing their emotions and weaving their stories together, reinforcing the notion that no one is alone in their struggles. Witnessing these connections unfold filled my heart with gratitude and purpose. As I navigated these new ventures, I also became mindful of my need for emotional protection. I learned that while connection and sharing were essential, safeguarding my mental space was just as important. I realized the significance of establishing healthy boundaries, allowing me to engage deeply while also preserving my own well-being. Healing isn't a linear journey, and I accepted that there would be moments when self-doubt resurfaced, whispers of old narratives threatening to resurface. During such times, I returned to my writing. This process allowed me to ground myself, guiding me back to my center and helping me reaffirm my worth. Writing became an emotional anchor, prompting reflections that rejuvenated my quest for authenticity. Through these reflections, I learned to celebrate both the light and shadow within me. I ventured into public speaking, sharing my insights with larger audiences and discovering the power that comes from storytelling. Each time I shared my journey, I recalled the timid girl who had felt invisible, finding strength in her resilience. Speaking my truth invigorated me, transforming vulnerability into empowerment. No longer did I stand merely as the daughter seeking recognition. I was a woman whose voice resonated with authenticity, and I felt ready to inspire others to embrace their own truths. The echoes of my inner child had transformed into a melody of strength and hope, a reminder that healing is a shared experience traversing beyond the confines of personal narratives. The momentum of my journey propelled me further into community initiatives focused on emotional resilience. I founded workshops designed to evoke courage and foster connections. These initiatives emphasize the power of vulnerability, inviting participants to share their stories and explore the emotional landscapes they inhabited. One particular workshop stirred deep emotions within me. Sitting under the open sky with participants encircled, I felt a palpable energy. Stories, laughter, and tears flowed freely. In those moments, I experienced the powerful truth that we are all intertwined through shared struggles and victories. Observing the connections forming within the space was awe-inspiring. Participants resonated with one another, fostering an environment of mutual support. It validated my belief that storytelling nurtures our collective healing and empowers us to confront our fears. Each individual brought their narrative, reminding me of the intricate tapestry we weave together. Amidst this transformative work, I acknowledged the necessity of balance. While I dedicated myself to helping others, I remained vigilant about my own emotional needs. I checked in with myself regularly, ensuring the energy I invested was nourishing while protecting my boundaries. The act of saying no became essential as I established the importance of self-care. By prioritizing my emotional well-being, I allowed myself to give fully to those I sought to support, ensuring that my involvement remained genuine and sustainable. One day, as I prepared for an upcoming speaking engagement, self-doubt crept in. Old narratives whispered reminders of inadequacy, attempting to pull me back into fear. I took a moment to breathe deeply, recalling the progress I had made. Shifting my focus, I returned to my writing, pouring my anxieties onto the page. The familiar comfort of my pen guided me back, reminding me of my purpose and the transformative impact of my journey. After sharing my story at an event, a young woman approached me, her eyes glistening with tears. "Thank you for sharing," she whispered. "Your journey mirrored my own, and I felt so alone until now." That moment crystallized the power of vulnerability, showing me that authenticity resonates deeply within the hearts of others. It reaffirmed my belief that when we share our stories, we foster connections that uplift and heal. Each interaction reaffirmed my mission. I crafted a community initiative focused on resilience, providing spaces for sharing, reflection, and growth. These workshops encouraged individuals to explore their truths and nurture community bonds through storytelling. The sessions became a conduit for healing, reminding us all that we're intimately connected. As my community flourished, I recognized that my life was no longer dictated by old fears, but enriched by the choices I made. I embraced the future with an open heart, ready to nurture my journey with love and enthusiasm. Each step forward became a declaration of my authenticity, a testament that I had breaking free from the confines of my past. With every connection made and every story shared, I began to see the significance of my transformation extend beyond personal growth. It unfolded like petals of a flower, revealing new prospects to nurture authenticity, resilience, and love within ourselves and each other. Ultimately, I found strength in my vulnerabilities, allowing them to sing through me as I celebrated the beauty of self-acceptance. This journey continues, for the resonant echoes of our inner child bring not just healing, but also the promise of a flourishing future, where authenticity thrives and connections deepen. Moving forward, I stood not just as a survivor of my past, but as a testament to the power of choice and the enduring potential for growth that resides within all of us. This is my journey, and I embrace each moment as an opportunity to learn, connect, and inspire others along their own paths to healing and self-discovery. As I embraced the transformative changes within me, I recognized that healing is an ongoing practice, not merely a destination. Each day became an opportunity to cultivate my authenticity and resilience. My journey wasn't just about overcoming the struggles of my past. It was also about flourishing in the newfound strength I had discovered. The workshops I facilitated grew into vibrant spaces for healing. Each gathering became a sanctuary where participants shared their stories, weaving connections that transcended individual experiences. I witnessed firsthand how vulnerability could foster deep, meaningful relationships, reinforcing the bond of community. We were not alone in our struggles. Our stories intertwined, supporting one another along our paths. In this environment of shared growth, I found joy in watching others transform. Each session allowed participants to express their emotions, offering them a chance to validate their experiences. The narratives unfolded like petals of a flower, revealing beauty and strength through connection. Understanding the importance of self-care, I became increasingly mindful of my emotional boundaries. While I cherished these connections, I recognized the need to protect my own well-being. Establishing healthy limits became crucial, allowing me to invest in others while maintaining my energy. Throughout this journey, I accepted that healing is not linear. There are moments of progress, but there are also days when shadows of self-doubt resurface. When these feelings crept in, I returned to my writing, a practice that guided me back to my core, helping reaffirm my self-worth. Journaling became an essential tool, allowing me to process my emotions and maintain a clearer perspective. Through this reflection, I learned to celebrate the beauty of my vulnerability. I delved into public speaking, sharing my journey with larger audiences. Every time I stood before a crowd, I felt the weight of my past lifting, replaced by a sense of empowerment. It was an affirmation that my journey mattered, not only to me, but to others as well. Encouraged by the positive responses, I expanded my outreach. I launched community initiatives focused on mental health and emotional resilience, establishing safe environments where individuals could explore their truths. Each workshop was a testament to the power of storytelling, reinforcing our shared humanity and experiences. 1. Workshops stood out as particularly impactful. Sitting in a circle under the open sky, participants shared their stories of struggle and resilience. Together, we discovered the strength in our shared narratives. Afterward, a young woman approached me, tears in her eyes. "Thank you for sharing," she whispered. "Your journey mirrored my own. I felt so alone until now." Her heartfelt words crystallized the transformative nature of vulnerability and the communal healing that emerged from our shared stories. Every connection reinforced my mission, grounding me as I facilitated these transformations. I became more aware of how my journey empowered others to embrace their authenticity. This realization fueled my desire to create even more spaces for healing and connection. Along the way, I realized my own identity was no longer tethered to the shadows of my past. I had embraced my truth and found my voice. Gone was the timid girl seeking recognition. Instead, I emerged as a woman who proudly stood in her authenticity, ready to inspire others to do the same. As I continued to engage with my community, I felt a buoyant clarity surrounding my purpose. Every story shared, every journey followed, reminded me that we have the power to uplift one another. I was crafting a legacy rooted in resilience and love, forging a path that others could follow toward healing. Reflecting on all I'd learned, I understood that my story, once marked by pain, had transformed into a beacon of hope. I was no longer just surviving. I was thriving, ready to embrace the next chapters in my life filled with potential, growth, and connection. Moving forward, I celebrated not only my victories, but also the ongoing journey toward self-discovery and authenticity. I welcomed each moment as an opportunity to connect, learn, and inspire others to embark on their own paths of healing. This is my legacy, a testament to the transformative power of vulnerability and the strength found in shared experiences, encouraging us all to rise and embrace our true selves.